Hi everyone, this is a quick introduction to a video we made a couple of months ago and I've been wanting to get out and just haven't found the time. This is an interview with the top #1 tutor on the English section. He's got 14,000 classes done, and if he doesn't know it, it doesn't exist. It's not worth knowing. And this guy knows a lot about pre-apply, is Jesse, and I sent him a list of questions and he responded. So I edited this together as kind of like an interview. It's not quite live, but it's as good as we could do under the circumstances. Enjoy. Hey Jesse, how you doing?
I'm doing great. I hope you're doing well as well. On Preply, I've been teaching since about 2017. I think it was April. I think I had around 13,000 classes at some point. Probably around 150 active students. And I teach about everything. So I don't really think that there has been a moment when I expected it to get so vast or to become such a really overwhelming task. And it still hasn't gotten to that point yet. But it's quite interesting the way that the students ask me for things, and I prepare material for lots of different types of students. So this is really interesting.
I agree. This platform of pre-apply has allowed us to continue to work and just work in greater and greater quantities. What do you think creates a snappy profile?
Snappy profile, I think something that gets right to the point. Of course, the whole system depends on Preply's rating system and your availability. But once they see that someone is available and they have a pretty good rating and their attendance is pretty good, they usually try to get you some students. And this is really a good part about working on Preply and relying on the system to provide your profile with attention.
Why did you choose to put the things you have in your profile on your profile? What do you think a student looks for when they're choosing a tutor?
The things that I have on my profile are related to history, English, some science, and I think this is because of my past education. I thought it was really important. And then for TOEFL and IELTS and CAE and different kinds of tests, because it's important for people to understand that I'm able to teach those things.
Can you tell me a little bit about your background?
Okay, so I went to school at a few different colleges and universities, military as well, and I think that the length of time that I spent going to school really affected the way that I'm able to teach, and the fact that I started helping other students like myself when I was in school helped me to create a kind of environment now that helps people.
How did you get into teaching? What made you start?
That's a great question. I think about almost 20 years ago, I started helping people that I was going to school with their tasks, because I wanted to talk to people and I wanted to connect with my students, my friends. I felt like I was living in the city and I wasn't living on campus, and it was a great way to get to know people. So I really liked it, and I just kept doing it on and off ever since.
Why do you teach?
I think I teach, again, to get to know people. I'm a real people person. I'm an extrovert. I like to meet new people, but I also like to talk about people's lives and see how they progress. So that helps with old students, and that helps with people who have been coming to the class for a while, because I'm really interested in their development, and I think that's really important.
Can we talk about the video you made on your profile? I know I've made a few videos on how to make a good one, and I see a lot of different videos on the website. I see a lot of progression as well. People will post a video to get started, just to get out there, and then after a few months or a year or two, they'll post another one and maybe a newer one updated. And I see a difference between levels of quality between the first video and later videos. What about your video? How did you choose yours? What concepts, what parts, what ideas do you think was important to include for your students to understand how you teach?
I've only made one video for Preply, but I think I tried to record it about 50 times before I really got something that I thought was decent. I think that at first I was really nervous, and then I eventually got to the point where I felt good about it, and then I said, okay, I'm going to post this. So I sat in my living room for about 3 hours recording different takes, and then I went to my room finally, and I went ahead and recorded from there, and it felt pretty good. The video that I have now, I still use it. I still think it remains true to my principles.
How many hours do you work a week, and how do you handle the work-life balance between having such a hectic schedule?
Normally I get up at 4:30, I brush my teeth, I look at the emails that I have, and I start working. I work till about 7 o'clock at night, and then on the weekends I work from 5 in the morning until 5 in the afternoon. So 12 hours each on the weekend and 14 hours during the weekday.
How do you handle such strange hours, and how do you handle such a busy work week?
I have a really great support system. My wife and my family really help a lot around the house. So that's their kind of work, and while I'm working, they're doing their things.
And I do agree with you about having a support system. Like we're exactly the same. Like I'm working full on, and my wife is looking after the kids and doing anything that's house related, or managing the house, managing the home, and anything that's school related or kid related. So she's full on working with full time, helping the kids with their homework and everything they need to do to get to school clubs, and she's giving them lifts, driving them around, while I'm just here in my office just teaching all day long. And that works really well. I really appreciate that. I really understand it, and it's nice to hear your views on it. How do you sleep? Where do you fit the time in?
I sleep pretty well. I usually go to sleep around 8 o'clock, and usually sleep pretty well. I don't get up at strange hours anymore. I used to teach very crazy hours. I had like 22 hours one day, and I was like, oh, okay. I figured that this would be really a bad idea, trying to maintain that agenda. So I ended up blocking off hours and blocking off the night, of course. And there's a lot of times where people they cancel or they reschedule, so that gives you time during the day. If you're working a lot of hours, it gives you time during the day to kind of do what you need to do.
Oh yeah, I really understand about working crazy hours. Unfortunately, I've still got quite a few classes at midnight, right in the middle of my sleep.
I think that it's really important not to work a steady amount of hours during a set period of time, to give your body the time to get used to a pattern. I know a lot of people who sleep 5 or 6 hours, and that's okay, as long as you do the exact same 5 or 6 hours every day, all the time, and don't change that. Your body will be okay with it.
I took the sleep pattern thing off after having kids. And, I hear what you're saying about having a regular schedule, and I do agree. It's probably for the long term, it's a good thing. But when my babies were born, we were up at all hours of the night, and you don't sleep some days, and you do sleep other days, and you got to grab the sleep when you can. And I thought, well, that didn't kill me, so I can just keep doing that. And I do. I keep irregular hours all over the place. Are there any hours you don't work? And what do people say to that?
I think this really happens when you're really popular and the students are searching for that teacher, and the system is telling them that they don't have a chance to schedule because so many people want to schedule. And I did notice that happened during the COVID virus, that a lot of people jumped onto the platform and wanted to learn, and there was a huge amount of students that just were looking for classes and they couldn't find them. So at some point I said, hey, you don't have classes at this this hours, and I said, yeah, you just need to schedule ahead of time. So that's the real key for them, is scheduling ahead of time and making a commitment. And I think that if a lot of students have the money and the patience and the ability to schedule ahead of time, then it will help them. 2 months in advance even. It's really good.
I think that's some really good advice, like getting your students to schedule ahead of time, making that commitment, like you say, to future classes. What about time off? Do you get any time for vacations or holidays?
Well, holidays and vacations, I take about 2 days off a year, sometimes 3. Depends on what my wife wants to do. And right now I'm just in a kind of part of my life where I'm saving money. So holidays and vacations, I think that spending time with your family is kind of like a vacation. So I don't work in an office, which means like every day I'm at home. And that's talking to the kids, hanging out with the family, playing with the dog, running around every chance you get. And this is life, And a lot of people want to go to strange places and they want to take a break. But it's not much different than it was, 5,000 years ago, when every day was another adventure and a lot of different things happening. You do get to move a lot. And when the internet kind of gives you that ability to move around a little bit, so you're not stuck at one place. And that's kind of interesting. I do like that part about teaching online, and that's really cool.
I totally agree with you that working at home is completely different to working in an office, and I do see my kids every day and we do interact, and it's nice to be here and not be out of the office. At the office, if I was outside the house, I would feel much worse, much more disconnected, and working from home in that respect is really awesome. It's really good. How many students do you interact with on a weekly basis? I know the pre-play profile shows how many active students you have, but I also know that that's not strictly true. You don't have these guys on a weekly basis. Maybe you have them once a month or in short periods, and they stay as active students for that time.
I think on a weekly basis I interact with about 50 to 60 people normally, students. The organization is done completely through the calendar. Without the calendar, we'll go crazy. And thank goodness for Preply sending emails to students and advising me of class changes, because either I would have a secretary or I would have Preply. And Preply is pretty good at doing what they do as far as that goes. So.
Where do you work in the house? Because obviously we're working from home. So I remember when I started out, I used to work in the kitchen, and then between the kitchen and the living room, depending on the time of day. And then as things got better, we managed to rent a house that had a spare bedroom. The spare bedroom became my office. And that got a lot better because you have less interruptions, less noise in the background, things like this. So my question is, do you work in an office or do you work in the living room or the kitchen?
I work in my room. Sometimes I come out into the living room. There's a lot of things going on with all the kids, so it's quite hectic. Sometimes I have to close the door and go into the room and make sure that the sound is good for the students. I think when I started, I was in my old bedroom in my old house, and then I went to the kitchen when I got my own apartment, and I used to teach in the kitchen doorway, and it wasn't so nice. But eventually got enough money, saved up, and got a house, so it was nice.
How do you transition from a regular working job onto something like pre-play? How do you obviously we're not sure it even works, we're not sure if it's stable, we don't know if it's going to last.
I didn't really transition. I wasn't working at the time, and I started looking for jobs. I found Preply. It was an online system, and I didn't really know if it was going to work, but it really worked really well. And I believe that this was an integral part of my life, and it became part of my family's life. So.
I know as an online teacher, I often am concerned about my health, especially working the quantity of hours that we're working. So my question really is, how do you look after your health? What factors do you consider? Do you find you have to do exercise, or you have problems with your back, or Or are you looking after your eyes especially?
Okay, sometimes people ask me about health. This is true. So teaching online, it gives you an opportunity to not move so much. I think it's a really great idea to stand up if you're teaching, getting a standing desk really helps, or, walking around a little bit every once in a while. It's not so good on your kidneys if you sit there too long. But, keeping pressure off certain parts of your body is obviously important. So whenever I have a chance, I get up, I walk around. Sometimes I go outside.
What equipment do you use?
So obviously, I think the equipment is really important. Somebody once told me that the equipment doesn't make the worker. But I think that in the modern sense that it's really important to understand that equipment helps you communicate, and the better your equipment is, the better your communication will seem to be. As far as my equipment, I'm just using a regular Samsung computer with some earphones, and I like to share my screen a lot. I like to share videos. I write a lot of documentation. I don't use a board. I just share my screen and draw on it. I got a really good internet connection, about 250 megabytes per second, so that helps a lot.
What about the future? What do you think is going to happen in, say, 3 years' time or 5 years' time? Do you still see yourself working as an online tutor? Is there anything interesting that you're seeing developing? Anything you think is going to change things drastically in the next, say, 10 years?
5 years' time, probably still doing the same thing if I'm able to. And I think that the point is just to save money and continue helping people as long as possible. Eventually, we'll be able to relax. I think maybe in 10 or 15 years, we might start seeing replacement of teachers with AI-based learning systems. But it's a while off, so that's why I think it's important to save money and prepare for those kinds of things, buy a house and such. Make sure that you're set. Hopes for the future. I just hope that, life continues and that we stay happy. And I hope the world keeps developing and getting better. And that's it.
And finally, just before you go, what would you say is your best advice, being such an experienced tutor, to new tutors looking to start on the platform?
I think for new tutors, it's really important to, again, make sure that you come to all your classes. Make sure that you're happy for your opportunity, and that you try your best to make the people that you help better in some way or another, whether it be grammar, subject matter, or even personality. Sometimes people want a friend to talk to. All right? Hope you guys have a great day, and whoever's watching this really enjoys it. Bye.
Hey guys, I hope you liked it. If you want to do a similar kind of project, I'll put a link in the description for the list of questions we used, and you can film your responses, send them to me, we'll edit them together, and we'll post it. Thanks very much.